So I'm going to give a quick introduction what I plan on this channel to be for the time moving forward. Kind of lacked direction over the last couple of months, and I want to do 3 episodes a week kind of talking about NBA current events, news, reports, rumors that's going on, awards including player of the weeks and player of the months, draft updates, trade deadline predictions, stat leaders, games I'm watching this week, and a lot more. I plan on these to come out every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Let me know if you guys kind of like that idea or if there's anything you'd like me to talk about in the comments below. So the first thing we have to talk about couldn't be more exciting. Last night, Donovan Mitchell dropped 71 points. His final stat line in the Cavs' 145-134 overtime win over the Chicago Bulls was 71 points, 22 for 34 at the field. He went 7 for 15 at the line, 20 for 25 at the free throw line. He also had 11 assists and 8 rebounds. He sent it to overtime on a crazy tip-in after a missed free throw. It was the first 70-10 game in NBA history. It's the third 70-point game of the century, joining Devin Booker and Kobe Bryant. He had 13 points in overtime. It was truly one of the best scoring nights we will see in our lifetimes. It's crazy. Like, Luka gets a 60-point triple-double. Giannis is putting up crazy 40 and 20 style lines, and Donovan Mitchell's like, hold my beer, I'm gonna drop 70 plus and win. Also, Zion Williamson suffered a right hamstring strain last night against the 76ers. He had 26 points in 28 minutes before he had to leave the game. These injuries tend to be 7 days at the minimum, might be longer. With news that happened over the weekend, that there was a report from The Athletic, Shams Charania reported that Atlanta Hawks coach Nate McMillan considered stepping down. But then the day after, ESPN came out and reported that Nate McMillan denied that report that he was going to step down as the Hawks head coach this season. It's really not been the season that Hawks fans imagined. McMillan said he'll talk about potential retirement at the end of the season, and I'm sure there's going to be some type of trade deadline move for them. The Miami Heat sent down their first round pick Nikola Jovic to the G League. He was averaging 5.5 points and 2.1 rebounds this season. He'll be joining the CO Falls Skyforce. CJ McCollum had the best shooting game this season, in my opinion. He had a Pelicans record 11 threes. In their victory against the Philadelphia 76ers, he had 42 points in that game. Jalen Brunson returned to the Knicks lineup on Monday in their surprising blowout against the Phoenix Suns at home. Devin Booker didn't play in that game though, so maybe not as surprising. Eric Gordon, the longest tenured Houston Rocket, went out on record and mentioned that there's no improvement from the Rockets since the beginning of the season. You have to think the Rockets are going to heavily consider moving Gordon at this year's deadline to a contender that is in need for some shooting ability. I mentioned a little bit earlier that the Atlanta Hawks have not had the season that pretty much they had hoped in the preseason. Another team joining them in that regards is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They had a players only meeting after their loss to the Pistons over the weekend. We'll see if that turns their season around. They've had their fair share of injuries to front court players like Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, and that loss to the Pistons pushed their losing streak to 6 at the moment. The NBA plans to send the Dallas Mavericks to Abu Dhabi next preseason. The NBA staged its first exhibition game there last October, and the Mavericks are also expected to play a game against Real Madrid next year. So this all kind of goes into the global NBA expansion that the late great David Stern envisioned when he was the NBA commissioner. Also, last bit of news that the Celtics are unlikely to trade Peyton Pritchard at this year's trade deadline. That was reported by Adam Himmel of the Boston Globe, a very reputable source. So it looks like it's going to be a quiet trade deadline season for the Boston Celtics. They don't really have any holes on their roster, so really no reason to shake things up. Another reason why I wanted to do the first week episode on Tuesdays so we could discuss the player of the weeks. And for week 11, the Western Conference player of the week was who else but Luka Doncic. He averaged just below 49 points a game. That's just absurd. 13 rebounds and 10.7 assists. And the Dallas Mavericks went 3-0. That obviously includes his 60-point triple-double against the New York Knicks and that insane comeback he had at home against them. And it wasn't Giannis in the Eastern Conference, which is a little surprising. That went to Kristaps Porzingis, who averaged 24.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, and the Washington Wizards went 4-0. So shout out to Washington. A couple of fun games this week. We have the Boston Celtics against the red-hot Dallas Mavericks on Thursday in Dallas. That's going to be a fun one. Luka versus Tatum. On the same night, we have the Clippers against the Denver Nuggets, who have also been one of the hotter teams in the league, as Nikola Jokic is right up there in the MVP conversation. On Friday, Brooklyn is going to New Orleans, and that is going to be a really fun one. The Nets have been the hottest team in the Eastern Conference as of late. They're really looking like they could be finals contenders this year. Also, over the weekend, the NBA updated their MVP ladder, in which had Nikola Jokic taking the reins as the #1 player in that spot. He went up from last week's #2 ranking. Jason Tatum follows him at #2. Luka Doncic at number 3, Kevin Durant at 4, Giannis Antetokounmpo at 5, Embiid at 6, Zion at 7, Ja Morant at 8, Jaylen Brown at 9, and Donovan Mitchell at 10. It's really going to be a competitive MVP race for the remainder of the season. There's 6 elite candidates right now, and Zion could also get in that combo as well, as long as the Pelicans are still one of the better teams in the West, and he continues to doing what he's been doing. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure to be on the lookout on the community tab. I'm going to be asking you guys for a trade deadline trade suggestion, and the one that I think is the most realistic and the one that I want to talk about the most, I'm going to incorporate into Thursday's episode, and I'll obviously shout you out if you provided me that trade. And I think that's something we can do weekly, every Thursday. Trade deadline, trade idea Thursday, something like that. And yeah, we'll do that every week until the trade deadline. Drop a like if you guys do enjoy these. I would appreciate that a lot, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.